gap in the story of Jesus that has puzzled believers, scholars, and historians for centuries. We see him born in Bethlehem, wrapped in humility and wonder. We see him again at the age of 12, standing confidently in the temple, speaking with wisdom that left the religious teachers astonished. And then, suddenly, the story seems to stop. For nearly 18 long years, the familiar Gospels tell us almost nothing. No details, no stories, no clear explanations. It is as if history itself pauses, folds inward, and waits. These years have often been called the missing years of Jesus, and for generations, people have wondered what happened during that long silence. But what if the silence was not as complete as we were taught? What if the story did not disappear everywhere? What if, far away from Rome, far away from Europe, and far away from the councils that shaped the Western Bible, the memory of Jesus' early life was carefully preserved? Before we go any further, kindly take a moment to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more discoveries like this. Ethiopia is unlike almost any other nation on earth. Christianity was not imposed on this land by European missionaries centuries later. It did not arrive at the edge of a sword or through colonial rule. Ethiopian Christianity is homegrown. It took root early, long before Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire. In fact, Ethiopia is widely recognized as the first Christian kingdom in the world. Its faith grew alongside its culture, its kings, and its people. High in the mountains, ancient monasteries were carved directly into stone. Within their walls, monks prayed, fasted, and copied sacred texts by hand. They preserved writings in Ge'ez, the ancient language of Ethiopian kings and priests, a language still used in worship today. For Ethiopians, the Bible has never been just one book. It is a vast library, a collection of sacred writings that includes texts many other Christian traditions eventually set aside. While the Western world narrowed its canon, Ethiopia kept its wider treasury intact. And hidden within that treasury are stories that speak directly to the missing years of Jesus. Among the texts preserved in Ethiopian Christianity is a collection known to scholars as the Ethiopic Infancy Gospel of Thomas. This work reflects some of the earliest Christian traditions about the childhood of Jesus. While versions of these stories once circulated widely in the ancient world, they were gradually dismissed or forgotten in the West. In Ethiopia, however, they were cherished, copied carefully, read aloud, passed down across generations. For Ethiopian believers, these stories were not strange or threatening. They were meaningful reflections on who Jesus was, even as a child. According to these ancient traditions, the childhood of Jesus was not empty or ordinary. His divine nature did not suddenly appear when he began preaching as an adult. It was already present, quietly but powerfully shaping the world around him. One of the most beloved stories preserved in the Ethiopian tradition takes place on an ordinary day in Nazareth. The sun is warm, children are playing. Young Jesus kneels in the dust, shaping small birds out of clay with gentle hands. Other children gather nearby, watching with curiosity and laughter. Then something extraordinary happens. Jesus lifts his hands and speaks softly. The clay begins to move. The tiny figures tremble, stretch, and transform. Feathers appear. Wings unfold. In a moment that feels both peaceful and overwhelming, the clay birds come alive. They rise into the air, chirping as they soar above the rooftops. Some children cry out in fear. Others fall silent in awe. But Jesus remains calm, watching as if this moment is simply part of the natural order of things. In this story, creation itself responds to him without hesitation. For Ethiopian believers, This scene reveals something profound. Jesus does not dominate creation with force. He gives life gently, effortlessly, as one who belongs at the very heart of creation. Another powerful moment from the Ethiopian texts describes Jesus attending school. His teacher, often named Zacchaeus in the tradition, attempts to instruct him in the alphabet. But from the very first lesson, something astonishing becomes clear. When the teacher begins to explain the first letter, Jesus responds by speaking not only of its shape and sound, but of its deeper meaning. He describes its hidden mysteries, its spiritual significance, and truths far beyond ordinary learning. The words flow from him with clarity and authority. The teacher is left speechless. Overwhelmed, he finally cries out that this child cannot be like any other human being. The story is not meant to humiliate the teacher. Instead, it reveals a reversal. The one who is expected to learn becomes the one who teaches. In Ethiopian tradition, this moment reminds readers that Jesus' wisdom was never acquired through study alone. It flowed naturally from who he was. The Ethiopian tradition also preserves gentle stories of healing from Jesus' childhood. In one such account, Joseph is working with wood and stone when a serious injury occurs. His hand is badly wounded, and fear fills the home. Mary watches with concern, unsure of what to do. Young Jesus approaches quietly. There is no crowd, no dramatic announcement. He simply places his hand on Joseph's injured flesh. Instantly, the pain disappears. The wound closes. The skin becomes whole, as if it had never been damaged. Joseph trembles. Mary remains silent, holding the weight of what she has witnessed. For them, this is no longer just a child. This is the one who carries the breath of God. In Ethiopian memory, this miracle is not loud or showy. It is an act of compassion, reflecting the heart of the Savior, even in childhood. Ethiopian Christianity also preserves rich traditions about the family's time in Egypt. These stories describe a journey surrounded by divine protection. When danger approaches, it fades away. Wild animals grow calm. Thieves turn aside as if restrained by an unseen force. The land itself seems to respond to the presence of the child. Paths open, nights feel peaceful. In these accounts, Jesus does not grow into the Messiah later in life. He is already the Messiah, even in innocence. Heaven, in a sense, walks with him wherever he goes. Over time, the Western Church became deeply concerned with order, doctrine, and uniformity. Councils debated which writings should be included and which should be excluded. Stories of Jesus' childhood were often viewed as unnecessary or potentially confusing. Gradually, they faded from Western memory. Ethiopia followed a different path. Geographically isolated and spiritually independent, it continued copying its manuscripts in Ge'ez. Monks preserved these writings not to challenge the Gospels, but to reflect on them more deeply. While much of the world grew comfortable with silence, Ethiopia protected the early whispers. When we read the Ethiopian infancy traditions, one truth stands out clearly. Jesus' divinity was not delayed until adulthood. It was present from the beginning, quiet, gentle, powerful. These stories do not replace the Gospels, and they do not compete with them. They illuminate them. They show us a Jesus whose childhood itself was a living prophecy, a child who healed, who restored, who created, and who walked through the world with heaven open above him. Imagine what would have been lost if Ethiopia had not guarded these manuscripts. Imagine ancient shelves of parchment hidden in mountain monasteries, lamps glowing beside scribes as they carefully copied sacred words. Voices carried across centuries through devotion and faith. Ethiopia's Bible tells us that the missing years of Jesus were never truly lost. They were preserved patiently and faithfully by a Christian community older than empires and cathedrals. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest truths survive only because someone loved them enough to protect them. If this story gave you a new and deeper picture of Jesus, one filled with wonder, gentleness, and holy power, please remember to subscribe to our channel for more insights into the Bible and ancient Christian history. Thank you so much for watching, and may peace be with you always.